Howdy, and welcome to yet another Workshop Wednesday. Today's all about getting started. We rotate topics every single week. This is for our beginners out there. And we're going to talk about setting up and using goals in Google Analytics. So hopefully that is a topic you're going to be interested in today. My name is Chris Mercer. I do go by Mercer, and I'm the co-founder here at measurementmarketing.io, where you can find our content featured on such incredible platforms as Digital Marketer, Conversion XL, Social Media Examiner, countless others, and of course, measurementmarketing.io, where you'll find our courses and trainings. Now, what we really do is help marketers, marketing teams, and agencies figure out how to know the numbers so they can grow their numbers. And we do that by helping them learn how to use tools like Tag Manager, like Google Analytics, like Facebook Analytics, like Google Data Studio. And there's lots of different things out there to try to figure out your data story. Our job is to help make these things easier for you to use and more useful, so you can actually get unstuck and get moving. And we do that by doing something called the Measurement Marketing Framework. Now, that really is 5 key pieces. So planning, building, reporting, forecasting, and optimizing. Planning is all about figuring out, what the questions are that you're trying to answer and how do you get the information measured, and that's the building part. Then it's actual reports to get your details, and then you start using your reports, your benchmarks, to forecast your results, and then ultimately you can optimize by sending real traffic against what your forecasts were. That's kind of how that whole thing fits together. Now, part of the reason we cover this today is because goals fit into this. Goals come into planning. You need to plan out where you actually want to measure a goal. So we'll talk briefly about that. Then the build out, which is what we'll definitely talk about today, how to actually create a goal in Google Analytics. And we will show you how you can see it in the reports, in the reporting section. So you'll be able to see at least those 3 pillars today as we talk about goals in Google Analytics. Now, with all of our trainings, one idea is all you're looking for. It is so easy to get overwhelmed and frustrated by these tools because as awesome as they are, there's a lot to it. So we want to make sure that this is something that is simple for you to use and you actually get action, right? You want to be able to take action. So just grab one idea, one new concept, one new thing. I'm going to show you a lot of different things. Just grab one new thing, then you come back, rewatch this video for your next thing. And every time you rewatch it, you're going to get something else from it because that's just how it is. You level up every time when you practice. So that's what I ask you to do. And that'll help keep you from getting overwhelmed. If it starts to feel like, man, I don't know how I'm going to keep up with all this stuff, that's just because you're trying to hang on to too much. So just go back to that one thing concept. All right, let's go ahead and get officially underway, shall we? Getting started, setting up and using goals in Google Analytics. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and jump right in as we love to do here because I'm just going to show you how to do all this fun stuff. So we're going to start at the beginning, and that means we're going to go to a website, and I have created a nice little website here. Now, I'm going to give you, this is our fancy site. You'll see how fancy it is in just a moment, but I want to give you a pro tip first. Whenever you are doing this for yourself, for your clients, make sure that you UTM yourself. So for those of you not familiar, UTMs are just ways you can tag your traffic. And in this case, I'm going to tag myself that I'm coming in from test and that the source is test, the medium is test, and I'm actually putting the campaign of Mercer so that I know it was me. That's sort of how I'm doing that. So this is a very, very simple way to track yourself in Google Analytics. That way you can see yourself. So I'm going to go ahead and set that. And here is our fancy site, our nice little demo account site. So I've got a little WordPress site that we've created here to help us practice and test and all that fun stuff. So we're going to come through here. And what I'm going to do is I want to be able to set goals on some things here. So we're going to talk about how to set some goals in Google Analytics. And we're going to use this as an example. So what I'm going to do first, let's go through. I'm going to set a goal about the email list. So we're going to set a goal. So I've got a little post here. And again, the reason we've created this is to make it as simple as possible. It doesn't matter if you have an opt-in form or a button or whatever. All of the things we're going to talk about, the structure is the same, right? You're on a page and then you end up on another page. That's kind of how a lot of these goals work, right? In this case, even though 404s, it doesn't really matter because it's the URL that we're going to use here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back, and I think both of these are probably 404, which is fine. Because again, the what's here doesn't really matter because it could say thank you. It doesn't matter for our case. What I care about is the URLs. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to think about from this planning stage, like if I wanted to track something like a lead or something like a purchase, in a lot of cases, I have this mechanism, this structure of they're on one page and then they end up on the other page. Well, this other page, the thank you page that's up here, this is what you can use to fire a goal. You can actually tell Google Analytics, hey, listen, whenever they show up on this page, whenever they arrive at this destination, then I want you to fire a goal. And this would be a useful thing for you, right? You want to be able to track these different types of goals. So what this is called, because of what I just said in terms of you're telling Google Analytics when they arrive at this destination, here's what I want you to do. It's called a destination goal in Google Analytics. So I'm going to show you kind of where that is, and we're going to set that up. So first, we come into our little admin section. So you click in the lower left-hand corner. If you are on your home screen, it'll say admin in a lot of cases. So let me go back to the home screen so you can see that. But it's that little gear. So you click on admin, and this is what pops you back into the admin screen. So now I'm here and I go into my view setting, and under the view, you will see goals. Now in this particular view, we've got a bunch of different goals already back there. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this, and I'll show you sort of how to manage goals and everything. But you see there's different destination goals we already have set up, and some other types of goals that I'll talk about in just a few minutes here. But what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna set up a new goal. Right? Because sometimes, again, you won't have any goals back here. It just says new goal to start if it's a brand new account. So other times you're going to have a bunch of goals. So I'm going to assume that I've already checked through this and that the goal that I'm about to create isn't already back here. But that's something you definitely want to check for. Make sure you're not recreating or duplicating a goal. So I'm going to go ahead and click on new goal, and we're going to set up our first destination goal. And we're going to do it whenever somebody hits this little thank you for joining page, right? So that's what we're going to look for. So I'm going to come back and I'm just going to call this my Mercer's thank you goal. Keep it nice and simple. Then I've got different types of goals that I can do. Now we'll cover some of these in just a few minutes here, but really destination goal is what we're talking about here. Remember, because it's when they arrive at a destination, I want you to trigger the goal. So this destination goal is what we're going to click. And when you click on continue, it says, great, what is the destination? When should I fire this goal? That's what it's asking you here. So we've got three different options. I've got equals to, begins with, and regular expression. We're going to avoid regular expression for now because it's just a beginner's course. But if you know regular expression, this would be a great option for you. But if you don't, doesn't matter because you have these other two options. Equals to, the best way to think about this is exact match. It's the easiest way to think about it. Just like it has to exactly match this. And begins with means it has to begin with this, but it can end with whatever else, right? So those are kind of the two options that we have there. So I'm going to go ahead and say begins with, just because I like doing that. So we'll say begins with, because both will work in this particular case. And what we're going to do is I want it to, when they're arriving on this page. So here's a huge pro tip with goals and Google Analytics. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to go into my behavior reports, and I'm going to go to my site content, and I'm going to go to my all pages report, but I'm going to right click, or the equivalent on a Mac if you happen to be on a Mac, and I'm going to open this as a new tab. So I'm going to have two tabs open, and I'm going to slip this right back over here so it all comes back. So now I've got two tabs. I've got one tab that has my report open. I've got another tab where I'm actually doing my work of the goal. Super important. Here's why. I'm going to come through here, and I'm going to see this little thank you for joining. So I want the goal to fire whenever thank you for joining comes across. So if I do that, or technically begins with this. So I'm going to copy this whole thing out because I'm going to set it up for begins with, and I'm going to paste this in here. Now I need to see, is this going to work? So I'm going to copy this out. So I'm just copying it. And now I'm going to go into my Google Analytics report. I'm going to go to my site content, all pages, and I'm going to pull up quite a bit of data. This is a demo site, so I'm sure there's not a lot of traffic coming through here, but that's okay because this page should have loaded at least once. So I'm going to come through here, and I'm just going to paste this in this little box. So when I do that, this is kind of a shortcut. What I'm doing is I'm asking Google Analytics to go search through its database and tell me, do you even see this page? And in this case, it does, right? It sees that this page is being recorded. And more importantly, and this is the pro tip, it shows me the way it is being recorded. Because many of you, if you'll notice on mine, it says measurementmarketing.io/demo. It's because we set up filters, other things that we've done on this account to make it easier to read, make the story easier to see here. Some of you, it might just say / and then thank you for joining, or / 2018-37, thank you for joining, right? So it depends how it's in here. But whatever it looks like here is how you should put it in here, right? Ignore this part for the most part. In this case, I have to, because these examples, this was for a really old setup, a default setup. Before you can customize analytics, they sort of kept this in here, and this can mess up a lot of people because it's basically telling me, hey, just do / thank you. You don't need to have the www example, but I do. I do need to have it because that's how it's recorded in Google Analytics. So whenever you're working for destination goals, before you even set up the goal, go back, grab the thing that you think should be your goal, and go into your analytics reports, go to all pages, and pop it in this little box. It's called a little table filter box. And look for it and see if Google Analytics pulls this in. I'm going to misspell this just very quickly by deleting that stuff out. Because watch what happens. If I came in here and I hit enter and it says, oh, there's nothing back here that matches that. Well, guess what? My goal's not going to work either, right? Because it's basically telling me, hey, I don't have anything at all that matches that in the database. So I got to make sure, like, okay, I got to go back and check and see what I did wrong, which in this case was obviously just that misspelling. So I just copied that. I'm going to paste that back in there. And what I'm checking for is to see, okay, what would have fired this goal? And I see that this would have fired the goal, which is exactly right. That's what I want. So I'm going to copy that out. I'm going to click on it, and then it'll copy it from here. There we go. So we're going to copy that out. Again, that becomes our goal. In this case, totally 100% the same thing. But I know that this will work because I've gotten it from Google Analytics database. Right? I see how it is, exactly how it's being stored in my database. So if I have the domain name, I'm copying the domain name because I want to say it must begin with all of this, and then it can end with whatever else in this example. So then I've got the choice to put a value, which you can do if you want. And then you can set up a funnel, which is going to be beyond the scope of this training. It's a different topic. But you can also do funnels with destination goals. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on verify this goal. Now, this is another what we call trust but verify step. We call this TBVing, right? Trust but verify. So we're going to TBV this. What I expect to see, because I know the information is back there in the database. I know that because of this all pages report, and I can see it's back there, and I already looked for it. So I know that it's back there. So what I'm going to tell analytics is, hey, listen, if this was the goal, go back and see what happened. Now, in this case, it might say it's looking past the last 7 days. So I needed to verify. Two things are going to happen here. One is they're going to be 0. It's going to say nothing. There's no goal. That tells me that nothing happened the last 7 days. But I do see it back here. So I would go, okay, well, it's probably still working. The other thing that could happen is there will be a number, in which case there is something the last 7 days. And I don't really care what the number is. I just care that there's a number there. But that's analytics telling me, yeah, I see it and we're good. My guess is it's going to show 0, but let's find out. It shows 0. It shows 0 because in the last 7 days there was no data because this is a demo site. But because I see data in the all pages report, I'm still going to move forward because I'm like, well, it does see it in the database. So more than likely it's going to work. So I'm going to click on save. I at least did my first little trust but verify step. So, but I really don't know for a fact this is going to work yet, right? I don't know for a fact that this is going to work yet. It looks like it is. It should work as far as I know, but I don't really know. So we're going to test it. So how do we test things in Google Analytics? Real-time reports. Again, this is why it's super useful to have 2 tabs open. So I'm going to come to my real-time report. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into my main homepage. And I'm going to go into my real-time report. When that pulls up, we're going to go into content. And now in this case, again, this is demo account, so there's not going to be a lot of people on there. It should be just me. So I can see the page that I'm currently on, but I should also be able to see the traffic source, which I came through actually is direct in this case. So I'm going to go through and go into content. In fact, I don't like that. I'm going to change that. So we're going to click on this again. I think I just timed out. So let's pop that. So UTM underscore source equals test. UTM medium equals test. We're going to pull this back, and I want to really make sure I see myself as a traffic source. There we go. Test. Okay. So now I'm clicking on this, and this is basically just going to show me that, okay, I'm just looking at my own traffic now. So if I was a high traffic site that I was doing this for, I can UTM myself, click on that, and now it's just going to show me the pages, if I go to content, that are attributed to test. This is also a good way to make sure your traffic attribution is working properly. Okay, so now I'm on the demo. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on conversions. Now when you do this, you'll see all of the destination and technically the event goals that you have set up, destination event goals, are back here, including this one, our little Mercer's thank you goal that I just created. So we're going to test. We're going to see if this is working or not. So what we're looking for is on this goal, does it light up when I trigger it? So we're actually going to do a test. So I'm going to come down. I'm going to go to our little, can you join our email list? And then I'm going to test this by going to the destination, right, that I wanted to go to. So this would be the thing that the thank you page of the form or something like that. So I'm going to click on that. And I am now on the destination up here that I told Google Analytics fire the goal. So what I should see is the goal being fired. Oops, let's go back to real time. There we go. So we're going to wait just a moment and see if that works. And I do not see it working. So we've got to debug. Right? So we're going to come through and figure out, okay, why did that not work? So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my Google Analytics setup here. Let's make sure I'm in the right workshop view. I am. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go into the right setup. Mercer's thank you goal. There we go. And I'm going to go and make sure, okay, does it begin with this? It looks like it does. All the way down to the slash. So that should have worked. I'm just going to play with it and say, okay, let's just change this to equals to and see if that's going to work for us. And I'm going to try to trigger this again. So we're going to try to test this one last time. And I'm going to close out my session. So I have a closed session here, which should mean that my traffic source will also close. And then I'm going to come back in, copy out my little URL there. Let's test it one more time. And we're going to go back to our email list. There we go. So can you please join our email list? Real quick, I'm going to make sure in our analytics, in our real-time reports, I'm going to go to my traffic sources again, make sure I'm looking at test, which I am, test Mercer, perfect. So in fact, you know what? I bet you it's probably messing that up. So I'm going to take that out real quick. I'm going to look at my content, make sure I'm on the right page, do our email list. Great. Yes. Now I'm going to show thank you for joining. And that should switch to thank you for joining in just a moment. And real-time reports. Come on, real-time. There we go. Thank you for joining. And that should have fired a conversion, which it did. So that's what it was. My begins with wasn't working, so I had to switch it over to exact match, right? So there we go. So now I've got that goal working. Next up, I'm going to show you how to do an event goal. Now, I have events already working. Events are something, if you don't know what events are, that you obviously don't need event goals. But if you have events coming through, you have to set them up. They are customized, specific behaviors that you tell Google Analytics to do. You have to set up the event first. If you don't know how to do that, you can work with your developer or obviously kind of search for that. We have workshops on that as well in the Academy or our Win courses if you want to take a look at some of those. But I have set up events that will fire when things like scroll happens. So I can go through and I can go to a really, really, really long post. Let's just do that here. So I can go through and I can, as people are scrolling through, I can actually trigger events. So as we're going through, I'm going to look at analytics, again, in my main reporting section. I go into events and I can see here, if I go to events the last 30 minutes, I can see scroll. And I can see all the different scrolls. I got 10%, 25%, 50%, 75%. So let's say I want to set a goal when it's 50%, right? When that particular thing happens. So all I would need to do is go into Google Analytics. I'm going to say Mercer's test 50%. And we'll get that in there. We're going to say event. This is the event type of goal. Again, specific behavior. So that's what that is. And remember, the event already has to be in Google Analytics. So it's the same thing. I went into my analytics reports to see what was reporting. The other way to do that is in behavior. You go to events. I can look on pages. And I can go into any of my different pages that are showing events. Let's just pull today up. This is the benefits of a low traffic site when you have no traffic on a demo. There we go. This is today's stuff that we were doing. So now I've got the demo page. Let's just pull that. And again, I'm just sort of trust them but verify. Like, how is this coming through? And is Google Analytics seeing it in the right spot? All that fun stuff. So I can see under event action, it's a scroll. And then if I click through to scroll, I can see, oh, okay, there's my event labels. Now, again, if you don't see this, it's just because it's not set up. It's something you can set up with Tag Manager or other plugins and things like that will do this for you. But in my case, I already have it set up. So I know it's event label. It's the event label, and it's 50%. So I'm going to literally copy this out. And then I'm going to come back into my analytics and we say, okay, it's an event. So I'm going to click on continue and watch. I've got category action label. Which one do I want to use? Technically, I can use all 4 of these if I wanted to, but I have to use at least one. And you can use a combination. So you can use this one and this one, or this one and this one, however is good for you. I am just going to use the one, which is 50%. And I know it's the label, the event label here, because of this report. It's the event label is where it is. So it's in the label, and then it's called 50%. That's why I'm putting 50% in here. So equals to 50%. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on verify. Let's just see if it happens to say anything. It will say 0 for me. Why? Because in our demo site, which doesn't get traffic, there is nothing. But it doesn't mean it's not working. So let's just find out. It's just hopefully you see, if you do see a number, it's analytics telling you, yeah, it's going to work for you. But in our case, it's not. So I'm going to click on save, and we're going to try it and test it and see if we can actually get it to fire. So I'm going to go through, now that I've saved it, it's turned on, and we've got Mercer's test 50% goal right here. So what I'm going to do is we're going to come through and trigger that. So I'm going to go up to Measurement Marketing Demo account, and I'm going to go into our real-time reports. And what we should see, first I'm looking conversions, and we're going to go and we're going to see if it even lists there, which it does. Number 11, Mercer's test 50%. So there's the goal that we're looking to fire. We saw that this one fired earlier. Now we want to try to fire this one. Again, just for testing. So I'm going to click through. I think any of these actually will do it. I'm just going to refresh. Actually, what I like doing is do this. I'm going to take out, I'm going to close the session, kind of get a fresh pull, and then we're going to come back. Now, normally I would do this with a different browser or something like that to really sort of make sure that analytics sees me as a totally new user, just so I can kind of get an official test of this, but this should work for us. So I'm going to come through here and I'm going to take a look at, so there's my conversions, doesn't show anything yet. I'm going to look at my events. Now in this case, scroll shows here. So I'm going to click through. So I've got my little live action scroll event category, and I can see all the different scrolls and all my different labels. This is just, again, how we're currently setting it up. It is customized, right? Something that we did. So I can see that there are a bunch of different events that have fired here in the last 30 minutes. What I want to do is fire another one to get this to show 16. So I'm going to come through here and I'm going to kind of scroll down a little bit just on this page. And this should be about the 50% mark based on my scroll bar. So let's see if that actually shows. There we go, 16. See how that little showed there? So what should have happened, again, we're going to find out, but what should have happened, and by the way, this is a huge, again, pro tip. What I'm doing here is I'm thinking what should happen and then did it happen? I'm not just kind of going back in analytics to find out what happened, because that's going to frustrate you when you go back to GA to sort of see what you can see. That's the worst way to use this tool. What you do is you think, okay, here's the setup. Now that I did this, here's what it should look like. Now, does it look like what I think it should look like? And that's what we're doing here. So now that I've triggered this, what should look like is when I come to conversions, I should see it at the top with a conversion. Let's find out. So I click on conversions and womp womp, right? Not quite working the way we want it to. So I'm going to take out these filters just to make sure they're not messing anything up. Now, what's happening here, this is, again, slightly little nuances of Google Analytics. What's happening here is I've got an active users by default, which you will have, right? So we'll have active users by default. And I see the thank you goal triggered here, no problem. But then what I want to see is under goal hits, last 30 minutes, don't ever forget to check for these areas here, because sometimes based upon your setup, sometimes the data can show up here. So if I click this, I see that there's my thank you goal, which I triggered once. I also have another 50% goal. And I had some other goals here that were tracking stuff too. So I've got my 50% test goal showing here as well, right? Now, why is that showing up here and it's not here as an active user? It's just because of the way that I have the event set up. It's something called a non-interaction event, something you need to do with scroll rate. And so sometimes it will not show up where you expect it to show up. So check in another spot. And that's where you can see it and be like, oh, okay, cool. So 50% is actually working. It's just showing in this little area. All you care about in the real-time reports is that it shows up somewhere, because that's Google Analytics telling you it's working, right? That's your good enough to get going part. That's all you really care about. Ultimately, now that we know that Analytics is recording the thing that we wanted to record, now, because real-time reports are really good for testing, but we can't make any decisions based on this stuff. Now what we do is we actually go to use the thing, and that's going to be an acquisition. So we go to all traffic, then you go to your source media report. I think is a great report to start with. And what'll happen here is and these probably won't show up quite yet for us here, because it takes a little bit of time to get into these reports, but at least I want to show you where they're going to be. Is when you come down here, you'll see all your different traffic sources that are coming through here. And then you will see the results, all of your goals that are coming through as well. So let's see if that Mercer's 50% probably didn't show yet, but let's find out. So I can click through here. Yep, nothing yet associated to that. But let's find out if our thank you page, out of curiosity, if that had fired through yet. It may not have. Not yet. But what I would do is I would wait about 30 minutes or so, 40 minutes. It doesn't normally take that long, but about 30 to 40 minutes is what I would give it. And I would come back and I would look in these reports. Because remember, the audience acquisition, behavior, conversions, they take a little bit of time to get the processing down. So real time already showed me the goal is triggering. Right, so I know the goal works. So I'm confident in that part, but I wouldn't be confident enough to tell my boss like, yeah, it's done, don't worry about it, because I want to personally see it in the right spot in Google Analytics, and of course that takes time. So it's gonna be beyond what we have time for in this particular training. But this is where you would do it. Come into Source Media Report, you can see your goals. Click on all goals. May probably have some other ones that have fired here anyway. So there's some other goals that have fired. So I can go through and say, oh yeah, did this goal fire? Did that goal fire? And just making sure that I can actually see it. So in this case, that new leads goal had fired. But again, these other ones, not quite yet, but they will. They'll show up here. So I just got to give it a little bit of time. But once I see it in this report, then I go, cool, we're good. Like I know 100%, I've trust but verified everything, right? I TBV'd the entire thing and I know it's working the way that I want to. And then I can tie my traffic source into my results. Now, a couple other things on goals. When you come into the goals, you have two other types of goals. There are pages per session goals, and there are duration goals. So duration is just how much time do they spend based on how Google Analytics sees time. And then pages per session is the equivalent, kind of like an engagement metric that shows you on average how many pages did they see in their session. So that's kind of what that is. So, if you want to do engagement stuff, you can. They're pretty simple to set up, just based on time. So I'm not going to go too far down this. We technically don't use these a lot for ourselves, but this is how it works, right? Kind of how you would think, based on time. And then this one, if I flip it into pages per session, again, pretty simple. It's like how many pages? More than 2, more than 3, more than 4, whatever. So pretty simple to do that. And again, you go through the same process, trigger it, go through a few pages, make sure it shows up in, now it won't show up in real-time reports, because real-time reports only, real-time reports here, they only, when you're testing in the conversion section, they only show destination and event goals. You cannot test these in real time. Pages per session, you can't test in real time. Duration goals, you cannot test in real time, just by the nature of how that goal is. But you will eventually give it about an hour or 2 hours, and you should see it in your actual reports. So as you come through. So that's sort of how that works. A couple other quick tips on goals. In terms of what should a goal be, we basically have this ACE model. So you start with an awareness goal, and you will see that I have actually done that in our goals here. Let me go back, cancel out of this, slide that back over. So in our goals, we have awareness goals, which are when somebody's become aware of the funnel or the journey that we want them to be on, right? So we trigger a goal. In this case, it was when the sales page, loaded up. So we had a goal that when a certain sales page loaded up, it would trigger this goal. Then we have engagement goals, right? So again, thinking in this ACE model, technically it's awareness. Completion is like when they buy or when they become a lead. And engagement is what they did along the way. So you want to be able to figure out where the drop-off is. And so that's kind of what our ACE model is. So you set a goal for when they're aware of something. The C is the completion. You set a goal when they completed something. You set a goal when they engaged along the way. So you can see the customer journey and drop-off. At the very, very least, do an awareness goal and a completion goal. So you can see how many people started, how many people finished. And then you do engagements, right? If you can level up at that point. But no matter what, just get good enough to get going. Don't worry about being perfect. That's why I said you hang on to one thing whenever we talk about these trainings, because we cover a lot, admittedly, because everyone's coming in at different angles and has different needs. But just start at one thing. The easiest goal to set up is a destination goal. So I would start with those if you're brand new to goals. The hardest goal is an event goal, because you have to create the event first, and that normally requires you using Tag Manager or a plugin or some third-party integration or something like that. So just be aware of that. Now, under goal management, let's talk about goal management, and then we will move on. Here, they automatically are all turned on. You can turn them off, right? So if you're not using a certain goal, you can turn it off, but that doesn't mean it's deleted. So the way that it works in Google Analytics is once you have data in Google Analytics, something called data integrity, you want to make sure that you can't alter the data in Google Analytics, right? Google Analytics is going to protect its data. So once it's stored, once the goal is stored, then it's always, always, always going to be there, technically in this little slot. That's what this is for. So it's always back there. And you cannot go back and delete data in your data set, or else the integrity is not right. Because if you can delete your data, it's going to, make it, maybe you can't trust it anymore, because maybe somebody deleted something that should have been back there. So that's why you can't delete it. So what you would do is you can turn them off. So I could say if I didn't want to use these anymore, I could just turn them off, especially because we only have 20 total goals. You'll see this particular view has 9 goals left, because I already have, 11 of them already in here. So what I would do is, especially if I'm running out of goals, I would turn the ones off that I don't want to use. And again, you can't delete them, but you can stop recording data. And that's what this turning off thing does. Then what I would do, if I'm done with this goal, I would come in here and I would literally rename this goal. So I would put in this, and what we do, like today is in September. So what I would say is, okay, this is the month of September. That's when I turned it off. I'm going to give it 6 months of not collecting any data at all, so I can use this again in, let's say, March 2019. And I'm going to just save that and save that here, because it doesn't really matter how it's defined, because it's turned off. But now it says March 2019. The reason I say March 2019 is because that tells me that I can reuse this goal in March 2019. It's just a little short code that we use. So other people will come in and they just sort of name it a blank thing, which is also fine, right? Just putting something in like a little dash and then naming it like that. Again, it's turned off, so it's not recording any information. But I just don't know, by doing that, I don't know how long it's been turned off for. Now, why is that important? because I don't want to pull a report that says, show me this goal, and have it accidentally show me like the before version and the after version of the goal, right? The first way I was using the goal and the second way I was using the goal. Because if I just came in here and just set up a goal and changed it, if I said, okay, well, this one was working and I'm just going to come in here and I'll change the name to now, let's say new goal. And I'm going to change the definition to something else, right? Whatever it happens to be. And I'll obviously trust but verify and make sure it's working and everything else. And if I did all of that, then what happens is my new goal instantly starts recording, but 30 seconds ago, it was a different definition, right? And so the thing is, this didn't change. So to Google Analytics, it's the same slot details, and that's what's important. So that's why whenever what we call recycle goals, we turn them off and then we rename them when we say, hey, let's give it a good 6 months so that when I pull a report, I know if I say, show me what happened with goal 1, right, this little slot number and stuff, however I named it, it'll show me the results I'm really looking at. I understand the definition of I'm looking at. So again, I hope that makes sense, and maybe it's not a problem you're running into, but eventually you will as you get good at goals. Also, keep in mind, new views give you new sets of goals. So you can create a new view and get 20 new goals if you want. So that's another way, if you start running out of goals, you just create a new view. Just keep in mind, when you create a view, that's when it starts collecting data. So when you create a view, it's not like you're going to go back and see all the stuff from last year. It'll be the stuff from that second forward that you see. All right, so hopefully you got a few good tips in that little round on goals. Hopefully you got at least one new thing, thinking through some stuff. And again, trust but verify. You test things out. Not everything's going to work as you expect it to. That's okay, right? But you first think, okay, what should happen? And then you test it. And then you go, okay, well, that didn't work. Let's go back and backtrack and try a different setting just to get it working. Make sure it's working in your real-time reports. If it's working in your real-time reports, it will eventually end up in your historic reports. I've never seen it not. So it should do that. Again, there's always a possibility that it doesn't, right? In fact, I'm going to test it. Let's just go back and see real quick. I'm going to come back into conversions. Let's go into, not the conversions. Let's go back into my report. Oh, the report I'm in. Let's just do that. So it's in September. So I'm going to go ahead and refresh. Let's just see if thank you goal actually fired now. Now that we gave it some time, let's just see if that worked. And not yet. Bummer. Let's see if this other one came through. Nope, not yet, but it will. So we'll just have to give it some time. Again, I was hoping it would work, and sometimes it does, but not this much. So we'll give it another hour or so, and I would see it back there. But that's how you ultimately trust but verify, right? So we want to make sure that we're able to go through there, trust but verify, make sure that we have the goal working in real time. Then it will end up in the historic reports, the actual reports you would use to make decisions, but you should check it. Right? Like even now, I would still wait. If this was something I was doing for my own company or for my boss, I would wait another extra hour and really make sure that it's in those reports, because if it doesn't, right, it would be weird. I've never actually seen that, but I would want to try to investigate and figure out, okay, what's going on here to make that work. All right. So with that, if you are new to this stuff, you want to take out courses on this, we have WINS. We call them, it stands for What I Need. They're very, very focused courses. Like WIN Google Analytics Basics would be a perfect one if you're just starting out with Google Analytics Basics. We'll talk about how to track traffic and how to set goals and the ACE model of goals and everything else that we've covered here. We also have Tag Manager courses, Data Studio courses, traffic attribution courses, which numbers you should know. All that fun stuff is back there. So Measure.tips courses will show you everything that we have in relates to that. We also have an all-you-can-eat plan that you can get as well back there. Also, if you happen to be with an agency or a larger team and you want to make sure your team is trained in all of stuff, we have the Academy. It's kind of it includes all of the WIN courses, but then also has 4 different sign-ons for teams. It's got group coaching features to it. There's workshops every single week that get back there. Plus, there's a little library that you can go back and just sort of ask it questions, and then it'll spit out videos that'll help you with answers as well in some deep dive, very specific things on beginner topics all the way up to some super advanced stuff. So Measure.tips/start will help you out with that. If you are an Academy member, of course, thank you. We love having you here. And every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern is Academy office hours. It is our open Q&A. So that is basically our group coaching. It's your chance to work with an instructor, share screens. Typically, there's less than 10 people on those calls because it's only people that are trying to get help. Some people join them just to kind of see what other people are talking about and kind of what questions they're going through. And it's people of all levels. Some are very, very new, just getting started with all this stuff and are kind of freaked out about Google Analytics, which I get. Like, I've been there. And then there are others who have been using the thing for years and are way advanced and kind of doing some pretty cool stuff. So we're there to help you out either way. So if you are an Academy member, office hours member Q&A every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, and you will see your links in the members area and also in your email. And of course, again, thank you for being an Academy member. Now, next week's workshop topic is Beyond the Basics. So we're going to switch from getting started, the beginner stuff, into more Beyond the Basics stuff. We're going to go into a deep dive and really talk about the referral exclusions setting in Google Analytics. So it's a little bit more of a deep dive here, but it's focused on understanding referral exclusions, which is a setting in Google Analytics, how it works, why you need to set it up, especially for things like PayPal, if you're using PayPal, cross-domain tracking, any of that stuff. So if anything, if you have any of that going on, it's something you'll definitely want to pay attention to. So again, a little bit more detailed, but super important. So that'll be Beyond the Basics, our more advanced workshop coming up next week. Now, if you are a part of Workshop Wednesday, you will have access to be able to watch that. We do new workshops every single week. We allow that workshop to be up for the entire week, and you can watch it at your leisure for that week before it's replaced with the next workshop. But it's not all public. We don't make all of these workshops public. Some of them we do. In this case, this one will be public, but not all of them are. So if you want to get access to every single workshop that we do, we cover 4 different topics every month. There's going to be a beginner's topic, which is, of course, something like this, the getting started. There's the Beyond the Basics, which is a little bit more advanced on a tool like Google Analytics or Tag Manager or whatever. Then we do a strategy session for people that aren't maybe implementing as much on the tools, but they need to know what to do with their numbers. So we talk about that, how to kind of work with your strategy. And then we have a What's New, which is where we cover all of the updates and topics that have come through over the past 30 days, over the past month or so for Tag Manager and Analytics and Facebook Analytics, because these things change all the time. And they're going through some massive changes right now, which is fantastic. But that's why we do that workshop, to help you keep you up to date and make sure you keep your saw sharp and you're taking advantage of all the latest features and updates. So that's Workshop Wednesday in a nutshell. It is free to join, measure.tip/WW if you're not already a part. And of course, if you're a part of Workshop Wednesday, thank you for being here. All right, you have just watched Getting Started, Setting Up and Using Goals in Google Analytics. I appreciate you very much. Thanks for watching this workshop, and we will see you on the next. Take care.